Welcome back to Federal Insights, Spotlight on Cloud, sponsored by JTech Data Solutions and Dell Technologies here on Federal News Network. Joining us now is Payman Parastaran, the Director of Innovation and Senior Architect at JTech Data Solutions. Payman, good to have you with us.
Thank you, Tom. Good to be here.
And we've been talking about the whole idea of data protection and disaster recovery in the cloud usage context. And you have a good case history of an agency that was successful in doing that. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so recently we worked with one federal agency. They're kind of a medium size, but they had really no footprint in the cloud as of yet. And they had a specific requirement for providing disaster recovery and continuity of operations. And they wanted to leverage the cloud, given that they didn't have a second DR site, and they didn't have really the budget, the financial backing to set up a new data center and invest in new infrastructure. And it seemed like cloud would be a good fit for this specific use case. We went and did some discovery, and in a consultative fashion, we put together their requirements. They, again, they wanted to leverage the cloud. They wanted to have active DR. They wanted to eliminate the tape infrastructure that they had. They were still cutting tapes, sending these to an offsite location. They're paying for this service. And they wanted to be able to, once they have that DR capability, they wanted to be able to easily verify that their DR coup plans were working and pass audits as needed, so that it can demonstrate to their leadership that the capabilities that we had promised them are there, and they can take advantage of in case of a true disaster, right?
So they were not backing up at all, or they were just backing up to tape servers somewhere. It didn't
They
really.
were backing up locally to the on-premise data center. So when you have your backup data in the same location, if you have a disaster, you're not going to be able to leverage that for recovery purposes. And the tapes that they were cutting, they were sending to an offsite. But as you know, if you're trying to recover from tape, that could take months. And who knows if those tapes are still good. You might not be able to recover everything from those tapes.
Sure, and I'm surprised you can even buy the tapes themselves anymore, much
Yeah.
less keep the drives going. And give us a sense of the scope of the data that they had and how critical it was, and what, say, some of the applications were that they were backing up.
Yeah, so we work with them to determine what their critical workloads were, because not everything necessarily needed to have this active DR capability. So we identified the VMs, the server applications, and they range from your standard domain controllers and file and print servers to specific applications that they were running, databases, Microsoft SQL, some robotic process automation tools that they had, various applications. And once we determined what was important to them, those were the VMs that we started replicating to the cloud. And we leveraged Dell EMC's cloud disaster recovery software, which makes it pretty easy to take VMs that are in a VMware infrastructure and copy those bits over to object storage in one of the public clouds. And that could be AWS, that could be Azure. But the beauty of that software is that those bits that are transferred, it's really just the dedupe data. So it's just the unique bits. So we can take 10 terabytes of data that needs to be protected and reduce it down to a few terabytes that we're actually storing in the cloud. So the economics of it is pretty compelling.
Yeah, so that prevents buildup of too many backup related data sets in the cloud too.
That's right, because we're constantly deduping any data that gets sent up there. So only what's really true and new and unique is stored.
So that sounds like it would then simplify the whole issue of obtaining backups because you wouldn't have to sift through whatever it is you need and also improve your recovery time.
Yeah. So to that idea, I mean, the recovery time, if you're rehydrating your production VMs from dedupe data, that does take a bit longer. But again, depending on how fast you want to recover, what your RTOs are, your recovery time objectives are, we can tweak that. So we can make it so that the most critical VMs that you need to recover very quickly, we have what are called rapid recovery images. So there is that dedupe store of the data, but we also have a rehydrated, constituted, a native cloud VM that's ready to go if you need it. So when you click on that, button and say, I need to fail over, that's available to you and come up in minutes.
Yeah, that was my question then. That backup site can be used as a failover operational site if need be,
Right.
but that you hope to avoid that, but it can either recover at your main center or you can operate from that cloud recovery center.
That's right. And so if you did have a true disaster where your data center, went up in flames, you can recover operations, run in the cloud. And the way we did it for this customer, we made sure that their users can connect into the cloud and still access their applications if in the case of a disaster. Now, once the disaster is over, it's also a simple, essentially 1 or 2 clicks to come back to the on-premise data center. So we can move those workloads back to where they were and not have to keep incurring cloud, charges.
Got it.
For
All
the
right, good example of what is possible in this whole world. And that concludes our show today. I want to thank both guests. John Myhock is Director of Innovation and AI and Senior Architect at JTech Data Solutions. And Payman Parastaran is the Director of Innovation and Senior Architect at JTech Data Solutions. I'm Tom Temin. You've been listening to Federal News Network. For more on this discussion, please visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search cloud.